matua. Peter Parone.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Chair.
Nā koe.
Whai atu I nohona koe ki reira. Ka hatia. Mr. Chair, it's a privilege to take a call in this committee stage of this bill. And I've heard it already said a couple of times that this bill changes the concept of the board. Well, it's been implied that the changes that this bill makes is a major shift in the Act and in the board itself. But all it does, Mr. Chair, is that it changes the membership. That's all this bill does. And much of the discussion has been around the term of appointment. And having said that, I need to say that my granduncle sat on that board for 49 years. And at no time did anyone question his ability and the service that he gave to that board. And can I say that the only mishap or mismanagement that occurred during that time was when the government was responsible for the day-to-day administration of the trust. Mr. Chairman, before I go on, I need to declare my vested interest as the present chair of that board and a representative of the 4 Māori families that have been alluded to tonight. And can I say that it is a pleasure to serve on that board and to represent those 4 families. I'm delighted that the bill does give the opportunity now for each of those Māori families to have their own representative. And I look forward to being sitting at the table with representatives of those other 3 families. Mr. Chair, I ought to say that that the removal of the ex officio members does not mean that government and the officials, the ministries that is responsible for this particular trust will be lost to the board, because it is the intention to establish an official working group that will act as advisors and to assist the board in its task of caring for that estate. I want to say, though, Mr. Chairman, that in terms of looking at the present membership of the board, and this must be a very rare thing for legislation that has been in for over 80 years, and this is only the 2nd time that it has been amended. And the first amendment was in 1958 for a similar reason, to allow an extra family to be appointed to the board. And so, in my mind, that suggests that the board over the years has done a very good job. I think one of the reasons for bringing this bill to the House was because of the increasing commercial activities that the board was becoming involved in, and to have members of ministers sitting on the board, and most of all to have the Governor General sitting as chairman. Should those commercial ventures run off the rails, so to speak, then that would bring those positions into disrepute. And so hence we have the opportunity, or this bill will give the opportunity for the Governor General to choose whether he or she will take up the position of honorary patron. And if they don't, well then that's fine. We will continue to operate. And when I say he or she, I should point out to the members who have expressed some concern about gender balance, that over the years there has certainly been Mr. Chair,
Peter Paraone.
a fair representation of women on the trust as well. Mr. Chairman, when this bill came before the Maori Affairs Select Committee, mention was made of a review. And my understanding was that that review was not to be a consequence of this bill passing through the House. And I'm a little bit disappointed that that review hasn't begun, because in my mind, there really is no reason for it not to have started already. Even though much of the concerns that the review will certainly bring up are already known to officials. Also want to say that some mention was made about, and the word was used, appointment of members of Parliament to the board, representing both the government and the opposition. Now, my little concern in that area, Mr. Chair, is that all other members are subject to scrutiny by the board. Now, I'm asking whether or not the two representatives from this House, will they be scrutinized by the board before they actually take their place at the table? And I think that's something that we need to consider. The other thing, Mr. Chairman, just talking about the membership again, of course, during the second reading, we heard of the passing of one of our members. And I just wanted to reassure the Minister that I have no intention of applying for the vacancy created by the passing of Mr. Edu Mahenare. So I just wanted to reassure, I understand that the Minister may have had some concerns in that area. But Mr. Chair, I know that over in recent years, both governments from both sides of the House have expressed a concern about the length of time members sit on the board. Now,
It's getting a bit noisy over here.
I've been on the board for 15 years, and probably half of that has been as the board chair. I haven't perceived any conflict of interest, both on a personal nature or a political nature. But I sometimes think that my political opponents see that as a sort of conflict. I just want to reassure this House, and in particular the Minister, that Waitangi is too important to me, and I think that Waitangi is above politics. And as long as we continue to see that and to adopt that approach, then I think that the nation will benefit from that approach, Minister. Mr. Chair, I also want to say that that the board has expressed its support for this. There were a number of other clauses that we would have liked to have seen included in this bill. However, we've accepted that the review will hopefully bring up those concerns, because as a board that is restricted by the terms of the deed of gift, it is somewhat difficult for us to do the commercial things that we would like to do without contravening the deed of trust. And so, Mr. Chairman, I can't overemphasize the need for the board to look at opportunities to be able to do the things that any other commercial enterprise has at their disposal. One last thing I want to comment on is about the membership of the Māori whānau. Now, the legislation says mahi kawiti. I'm a descendant of Te Ruki Kawiti, Mahi's father. I come from the older son, and I've always wondered, and I've researched it, and I still cannot find an answer as to why the son was, his name was put forward ahead of the father. Mr. Chair, I'll just wind it up.
Paraone.
And so I just wanted to have that on record again, and to say that it is a privilege to represent those families, but we will have some difficulty in a non-Māori institution like the board telling the Māori whānau who they should be selecting, or determining the qualities of the person that they put up for appointment, i.e., who are we, the board, to tell someone like Sir Tumu Te Heuheu and Ariki as to whether or not he's suitable to be retained on the board. And so that's some of the issues that the chairman of the Maori Affairs Select Committee alluded to in his presentation. But I just want to conclude by saying that I commend this bill to the House.
Kia ora.
Mr. Chair.